But sadly, in the United States, we have 5 million children who are victims of domestic violence in their own home.
Hmm.
So sadly, not many people share the same viewpoint that you and I do.
So I'm going to take a quick detour.
Hmm.
What is categorized specifically as domestic violence? So I grew up and I'm in my early 40s, and my parents were a product of whippings. So I got whippings until I was about 11, 12 years old, and then punishments became taking things away. And I've since talked to my father, and he's commented on the fact that maybe that wasn't the best way to raise you. And I told him, I was like, it wasn't the best in every scenario, but sometimes that discipline made me listen to you, I guess out of fear, but love and fear, or it also made sure that I stayed on the straight and narrow path. So I guess my question is, what constitutes domestic violence, and what are the different levels of punishment that are acceptable and not acceptable?
Well, you bring up something interesting. I grew up in a home. I wouldn't say it was whipping, but I certainly got spanked, back of the hand or spatula at worst. Um, Today, in today's society, that's not accepted for whatever
Mhm.
reason it might be. But I've had children come to my home who have had been beaten so severely that they had no teeth. I've
Ooh.
had children who have had hands placed on stoves. Um, Children who have been raped by their family members over and over and over again. Um, I've had children who have seen their mothers beaten severely and maybe even to death.
Mm,
And that's where we're seeing so many children in today's society coming from.
mm,
We're seeing the breakdown of families, breakdown of values and morals that family values that you and I grew up in. Those are deteriorating in our society. Um, it's a rough time for children. You can also look at what's happened post COVID. We're seeing an increase in teenage suicide, up 70%. Teenage suicide attempts up 70% since 2020. So our children really are under attack in so many different ways.
hmm. Um, eh, I know that's just hearing you say that tugs at my heartstrings of what these kids having to go through. Obviously, my parents never did anything quite to that extreme. Like when I say whoopings, like I have a belt every now and then, a couple of lashes, but it was never any part where there was any bruises or blood. When you're seeing kids that are being treated like that, how do you control your anger?
That's a great question. Um, and I'll tell you, it's difficult. I think you said whippings. I think about the 18-month-old we had at our house who had lashes all over his back. He's whipped by his mother with an electrical cord
Mm,
because the father of that child was different than the other two siblings that he had, and she was upset with that father. So he had lashes all over his back from an electrical cord. Um, how do I keep it from becoming angry? Well, I struggle with that. As a
mhm,
human being, I get upset that these crimes have been committed against these children. As a person of faith, I have to remind myself, well, my sins are no bigger than theirs. God loves them just as much as He loves me. These children, these parents are children of God. They're most likely coming from the same type of environment. It's generational for so many kids. But I struggle. I used to really struggle mightily when I first became a foster parent, and now I recognize so many of the parents of these children are coming from an environment where they were abused as well. I think back to two kids that are third generation foster care. Their parents and grandparents were also in the system, and their birth mother was prostituted out by age 9 by her
mm,
father. There's no way in the world she is capable of being a strong, positive, healthy parent or mother when she never had that in her life, and she's still suffering from her own trauma in her
mhm.
life. So sometimes I need to remember that. But there have been times where I have been angry.
Yeah.
How could you do this to a child? I think back to the 4-year-old girl, 2-year-old girl, 1-year-old boy who had all been raped by their grandfather over and over again.
Jeez.
And I think, how can you do this? How can people do this to children? Um, so I struggle with that from time to time. Sure.
Yeah.